shorter and shorter and shorter. It's almost like we know what we're doing now.
Or we surrendered.
Yeah, right.
What's going on, guys?
At this point, we just throw up our hands and say, "All right, let's run."
Yeah, we're in give up stroke, man. We're down like 8-1. It's like, hey, if the
Yeah.
balls go in, we can play. If not, there's a casino.
Yeah, right. And if you hit it big enough there, you don't have to finish out your tournament.
Oh, nice.
Too soon?
I saw what you did there. No, that was good.
Just kidding. Don't kill me. Well, what's going on, guys? Mike, I got to see you in Michigan. It was so much fun. I didn't know you could drink that much. You are hammered.
If I had 3 drinks the 3 days that I was there, that would have been a lot. But, no, it was a good event. I mean, it was fun. I've said a million times, I'll say it a million more times. I love when the men pros and the women pros play in the same arena. I think that there's just a different energy. I think it energizes the women that all the men are there. I think the men behave a little better that the women are there because they, present themselves so well. I think they interact well, and I think the fans love that dynamic. So I wish, I loved it that, the Predator Series has a couple of these events like that, and I wish they would do them all like that. I wish they'd, jump in. I mean, it's a big investment, but jump in whole hog into the WPBA tour events and have something tied into all their events because I think it's great. And there were a ton of amateur players there. The CSI event was huge. I think they had 700, 800 players.
There was 50 pool tables, so I guess that would kind of make sense.
Yeah, so they did a great job with that. The arena was cool. It wasn't perfect, but splitting hairs at this point. Yeah, good event.
Yeah, well, I mean, I don't know what didn't you like about the arena? Just out of curiosity.
I hated the floors. I hated the concrete floors, and it wasn't as much for I just think aesthetically.
Oh, absolutely.
It didn't look when I walked into it. I didn't feel like. It was a great setup, and they did the TV arena was nice, and that pro area was kind of sectioned off. But I didn't really get a sense like I was walking into a pro event when you first walked in there. And I think just the harshness and the coldness of the concrete floors that was when it's like when I walk into a restaurant, there's things I immediately notice that are going to give me a positive vibe or a negative vibe. When I walked into that, just, into the arena, the first 10 feet, the first thing I noticed was how, the concrete floors just looked like, like this was in someone's garage. But other than that, do
you get that same feeling when you walk into, let's say, Turning Stone? Just out of curiosity?
I've never walked into Turning Stone, so I can't, and I can't say, and I was not at the U.S. Open last year, so I know they talked about concrete floors there. Was it U.S. Open or World Championship?
No, not the U.S. Open. The U.S. Open was
where the outline tables were all under carpet.
The U.S. Open?
Yeah.
The U.S. Open is in a ballroom. I don't know too many ballrooms that have concrete floors.
Okay, I thought that maybe it was the World Championships. That they had that, those outside tables were up. But anyways, and I haven't been, so I in the last couple of years, so I can't base it off of those at all. I just know what I felt when I walked into Michigan. But the arena was cool. It had seating, upstairs, and it seemed like the city really rolled out the red carpet for the event and the pool players. So that was cool. I mean, I love when you take over a small city with an event like that. You get a little more treatment, a little more, exposure. So, I thought all in all, I thought it was a great event.
Sure. Demetrius, I guess, describe, I'm trying to think of like the biggest events in the U.S. that are in arenas. And I guess the biggest one that I can think of is Turning Stone. It's actually, I guess, the only one I can really think of is
Derby, or I don't know.
I don't think Derby's is Derby in an arena?
Yeah, Derby's ballroom.
Oh, okay. In terms of arena. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I don't know. So Turning Stone, yeah. I mean, they cut the carpet this year. That was the big thing is, it was 10 or 12 grand to, get the carpet in. And that was a concession that Zugland made to keep the thing going. I can't. I'm a very poor person to talk to about this type of stuff. It's kind of like equipment. I'm a function person, so as long as the tables all play good, that's like literally all I notice. Now, I shouldn't say that. Like I can understand when you walk in, I do notice a couple of details. Like when you have a couple of things I like about Turning Stone is, and the same thing as the U.S. Open is when you have, tables with jugs of water and ice water and cups and little towels by the tables and tablecloths over the players area and just like little things that kind of make it feel like they're making it comfortable places for your cues. You're not just kind of I noticed that stuff, but yeah, I wasn't there, so I can't speak to the how it presented. But what are your thoughts about that, Nate?
Well, I mean, I get it's probably because I helped set up the event in Michigan that I didn't really notice. Because obviously, when I walk into it, I'm walking into the event before it's even set up. So I guess I'm seeing the progression of it. So it's interesting to me that I guess Mike noticed right away that it's not like that. Because I guess it's probably because I was there setting it up along the way. I saw the progression of it going into it. And you want to talk about what he was talking about? You should have been there, before, because then you get the arena for what it is, right? You get the arena for exactly. You could pull out all the tables that were freshly unloaded off of the semi, and the next 3 hours you could have an ice hockey rink in there.
Yeah,
because apparently they do that there too. So they play hockey out of there. So I mean, it's you kind of see that, and you're like, okay, well now it's 36 hours later, it's an entire pool tournament. I don't know. I guess being on the other side of it, I wasn't really paying attention to the aesthetics of it, but
it's not
yeah,
really trying to criticize it. It's
well, it
just
is what it is, right?
It
You're
is.
not being unfair.
When I walk in, I try to try to develop the mindset of if I had coaxed someone off the streets, not a hardcore pool fan, but if I had coaxed someone off the streets to come in and watch this professional event that's tied in with the amateur event, what would likely be their response to me the first 10 feet when they walked in? That's I try to think about that, and that's kind of where my mind kind of goes.
Sure. So now that I will say this, I was at the Michigan Open last year, basically playing the same role I played this year. And Predator has come light years.
Oh, no doubt about it.
And I mean, from what happened last year to what happened this year, and obviously their tournament went smoothly last year as well, but they are so much more refined into what they're doing. This tour is only going to be growing and growing and growing. As long as they can find a way to monetize it and make it all worth it, this tour is going nowhere. And like they're getting really good at what they're doing. I mean, it's awesome to see. Maybe next year they find ways to hang banners, or maybe they're able to carpet off the all of the stadium chairs that are just kind of pushed into the wall, right? And now you have you still might have the concrete floors, but maybe in the background you have black.
Well, I mean, it's all. I mean, I get it. It all costs money. It all costs people, to improve event. And Predator has continually spent more and brought more people in to help and work and have improved the product immensely over the past year, like you said. So it's all going in the right direction. And maybe next year they can come into town and say, listen, we had this kind of economic impact on you guys last year. Throw us some carpet this year, or whatever,
Sure.
or some pipe and drape or something. So it's all part of the process, and not downplaying them at all. They're doing a great job, and it has improved every step of the way as they've gone along. It seems like it's a great city for them to continually go back to. So I just, hope, I'm guessing next year it'll be even better.
Sure. Well, let's actually jump into the event. Let's start with the ladies' side. Kelly Fisher is your winner again for, I guess James Walton says that's her 6th gold this year. Kelly this had pretty much a full field of women. I mean, minus the Chinese ladies. This had almost every top women's player in the world. Of course, you can point to a few here and there that weren't there, but this had Kelly Fisher, Allison Fisher, Angeline Tokolu, the Jasmine Ocean, the current world champion, Wei Su Chen, Amelia Matas. I mean, most of the top women in the world, at least that travel, Christina Tkachin, Margaret Fefalova, of course, they were all there. I mean,
that was a strong field.
Super strong.
Huge.
Yeah, absolutely strong. So I guess looking at this field, Kelly gets the win again. And any surprises? I mean, she played. It looked like she really struggled to me in the beginning of the tournament. Maybe she was struggling with some jet lag. I mean, she still has that broken hand, but by the end of it, she was really in form. I mean, what was your takeaways, Mike, being there?
No, she played, I think that it was not easy for her all week. I don't think she ever felt like she was really in top stroke and people fear her. She had to come from behind a couple of these, win the second set just to get to a tiebreaker, right? So, I don't think she ever felt like she was in top form. But, that's the thing about Kelly Fisher. I mean, she's, you talk to other players, men and women, she's as tough and she can grind with anybody, and she's just mentally so tough and so strong that she'll find a way to win matches that a lot of other women just won't win. And to me, that's what she did in Michigan.
Yeah, she did lose her second match to Margaret Fefalova, and I think, I'm going to get this wrong, but I think she lost 4-0, 4-1 in that match to Margaret.
Yeah, it was pretty close to that. It was pretty.
It was a bit of a beatdown.
Yeah.
And then from there, I guess she goes over to the B side. Let me see where she ended up playing into. And she went on a run of she beat Jiri Ang 2-0. Ang.
Yeah.
Christina Schneider 2-0. Christina Tkach to get into the final 16, 2-1. And that was a great match. Ended up in a shootout. And then she gets back onto the A side from there. Well, the final 16, beats Silviana Liu. That's Aloysius Yapp's girlfriend. Plays excellent pool. Beats Angeline Tokolu, an excellent player as well from Indonesia, 2-0. Karen Kaur 2-0, and then Wei Su Chen 2-1.
Yeah.
She did. Yeah. Amber Chen. Let me see. I know that she did not make. She lost to Yasmin Ocean in the final.
So what were the top four? 16. What were the top four?
Sure. Kelly Fisher beats Wei Su Chen 2-1 in the finals. And then third, fourth was taken by Karen Kaur and Allison Fisher. So you want to talk about a blast from the past?
Yeah, that was the story of the week for me with the women was seeing Kelly, Karen, and Allison in the final four. Man, talk about a throwback.
Probably my favorite part of this. So if anybody was at Michigan, you kind of saw how the tables were set up. So if you're facing from the amateur side, the TV arena, if you look to the left, there were 3 rows of pool tables. And I was standing over by the TV production side of things. And at one point in time, I looked down and the far back table, so there's 3 rows. So the third table down, Kelly Fisher was practicing spot shots. The second table towards me was Allison Fisher doing a drill. And the third table, or the closest one to me, was Karen Kaur just shooting balls. You look down that row, just that row of, there's probably 40 world titles, 200 major titles in pool. And it was right there in a line. How amazing. I don't know why I didn't get a picture of this, because it would have been so magical just to see this line of monsters. It's like getting Rafael Nadal, Roger Federer, and Novak Djokovic all in a line. That's that level of dominance for 40 years. It was fantastic to see. It was cool. Karen Kaur's back. Allison and Kelly have been back for a year plus now. It's just really cool to see that.
I agree. I'm really glad that they're playing in these, that we're getting this kind of draw for these types of U.S. events. How does that compare to the same? Are we getting the same representation of the WPBA? I mean, I know Kelly Fisher plays some of those events, but do we get the same type of fields in the WPBA events as we did in this one?
This was a WPBA event.
Oh,
Yeah,
I didn't know
and-
that. I thought it was. I didn't know that. I thought I knew it was Predator CSI.
So
I
they've
didn't know that.
partnered. Yeah, so they've
And
partnered.
it's a sanctioned WPBA
Okay,
event.
so
it's
let
part of their
let me
tour,
let me ask you clarify. Are all WPBA events partner sanctioned with CSI? Okay, so then, but let me just say that the other WPBA events that
Right.
are run that aren't partnered with Predator CSI, do those get a similar field with you know, Karen Core, Allison Fisher, and
Yeah,
then
pretty
also
close.
Pavlova? Are they all?
Was the last one? Was the last
Gosh.
one the Northern Lights? Was that the last one?
Um,
That wasn't part of the Predator.
yeah, might have been.
I mean, that had a
Okay,
lot
and
of.
the reason I bring it up anyway is because I really I was talking about people taking the game to the next level. We were talking about that with women's professional pool in the U.S. I think that Kelly Fisher. I think so when we were talking about Allison Fisher, I mean I was new to pool, a few years in though when Allison Fisher came to the U.S. and started playing pool competitively and really dominating. And I don't think there's any question that she elevated women's pool in the 1990s from what it was in
Oh,
1989 to what it was in
Yeah.
1999. And so I think that Kelly Fisher is helping do that. I mean, I know that there's, like you said, Saming Chen, some of the Chinese women are phenomenal players, but if they're not able to get here, it's unfortunate. But I think it's great to see women's pool get elevated, and it because it's great. And by the way, there's a comment about Savannah Easton cashed her first WPBA event. Now I'll tell you, I've never I heard a little bit about her, of course. I watched her hit. I just watched her hit one shot, and I clicked on to a video that somebody linked to a video of her, and I clicked into the match a little ways in because I didn't want to watch. I didn't have much time. I just wanted to see how she shot. I watched her shoot one shot, and I was like, okay, she's going to be a top U.S. woman player in 3-4 years for sure. Because I saw some differences with how she's shooting, and maybe she's only 11 or 12. I think she's 12 now, but I saw some differences between what she's doing and what the other U.S. women are doing. And just that one shot, I'm like, okay. So yeah, I'm a believer. I think the women's pool is getting tougher, and I think that I just want to see them. I want to see the U.S. women get really, really good, and I think that having Kelly and Tkach and Fefalova and Allison Fisher, Karen Core, and then having the new young crew coming up really strong. I just think it bodes really, and then having opportunity with all these tournaments, I think it bodes really well. I'm excited to see where women's pool goes in the U.S. over the next 10 years.
Yeah, I sat down with Savannah's parents, well, her dad mostly, and had maybe a chat with him for 20, 30 minutes. Great dude. Her mom, I've chatted with her in the past very briefly. She seems like she has a really, really, really good support system behind her. I'm telling you what, I watched when I was chatting with her dad. I was just watching her match. She plays shots. She plays pro shots, and I don't mean pro shots like she has this massive stroke or she's able to play expert level shots. She plays her patterns and her safeties the same way a pro would. I don't know who's working with her or if she's working with anybody, but there is somebody that's in her camp that's influencing her game because you just don't I looked up her Fargo while you were talking there. Her Fargo is technically a 537. I think she's probably playing closer to like 580, maybe 600 from what I saw. But she plays a pro style of game. Like she does not play an amateur game of pool. It's like every shot that she plays is the right shot in the right moment. It seems like that's how I read it when I was watching it.
She's so funny. I mean, she doesn't have a particular coach. She spends time, a lot of pros have when they've been in Vegas or when she's been where they've spent time with her and talked to her. So she's a really smart kid to start with. So she absorbs everything from these other players who give her information, right? And she knows how to apply it. And she really, practices like ridiculous amounts of time. And she's so funny with I don't know if it's a size thing or stroke thing, but for her age and for her level, she tortures people at the same level with her safety play. Tortures them. I mean, she throws lockdown. She gets ball in hand so often because when she's playing people of a similar skill level, she drills them with safeties. Just torches them.
And I'd like to give a shout out to a couple. This is a little off, so I'm just going to mention the comments talking about young boys up and coming. And I just want to mention we do have some good stuff going on. So we're sending a few to the Puerto Rico to the junior international championships, the world junior international champ, whatever 18 and under world titles. Anyway, Eddie Vondro from Rapid City, South Dakota. He just actually played another JIC event last weekend and won. He's been doing really, really well. He's the kid that the first time I played him, he had me 4-0 in a race to 5 and on a 9-foot. And so I've had a chance to work with him twice for a few days, and that's been great. And then our Hank the Tank, Harry Lennon. So Harry and Ed are playing very, very well. Now there's others on the female side. We've got Kennedy Mayman representing, but I'm talking about young boys now. I wanted to mention Hank and Hank the Tank and Ed Vondro are playing some very, very strong pool, and they're both going to the JIC, international championships. We've done a few different fundraisers. I did one with my Minnesota Pool Boot Camp training group. We were able to throw 1,500 together to send to them to help pay some of those travel expenses. So I'm a big believer, and I think that Ed has announced 2 years ago that he was going to be on our Moscone Cup at some point, and he's playing well. And he's not playing well for a kid. He's not playing well for a little boy. He's like, no, he's playing good pool. And so I think that you guys are going to see over the next 4 years, we're going to see some really strong young pool. So, okay, I just wanted to mention that comment. So, and I'll let you guys talk about whatever you else want to talk about, but I'd like to hear about the top finishers on the men's side too, because I have a few comments about that. But anything else you wanted to say about?
I definitely have a few more topics I want to talk on the women, but we will. We will, of course. I mean, going into, we have 3 of the top 4 finishers were from the UK. Do we have anything? I mean, and they're all, I
former players.
Yeah, they are, right?
They're all former players, so their technique is so good. But go ahead.
Sure. Well, I was going to say, do we have any insight, or do we have anything to say about, let's say, you go back 30 years, and this is the same top three of the 4. I mean, if you go back 20, I guess probably 20 years, 20, 30 years, whatever it is, this is the same exact final 3 of the 4 players. Maybe you throw Jeanette Lee in there too. But the idea is pool, especially women's pool, in such a great spot? Is it in such a great spot that it's pulling these old players back out of retirement, quote unquote retirement, or do you think it's just a one-off? I mean, Mike, you have a little bit more insight than we do. Do you think that this is going to end up being a thing where Kelly, Karen, and Allison are all going to be in all of these events going forward?
Will they play in all the events, or will they dominate like they did here?
Play, I guess. Do you think that this is a trend? I don't, like a small month, or do you think this is going to be?
I think Allison has definitely felt a little bit of a revival because she's done well. I don't think she expected when she came back not long ago to have as good a run as she's had. So I think you'll see her out there more for sure. Karen Core, I would not expect to see a lot. I think this was kind of a, took a flyer, did a lot better than she thought she was going to do. But she's still, she's got a full-time job that keeps her pretty busy, and I don't think she really plays or practices much. She did not practice much before she came here. And the comment I made before about being snooker players is that, they're so solid with technique and fundamental from their snooker backgrounds and from their, growing up as snooker players, that's why they can still be playing at this level 25 years later. That's why Karen Core can be missing for 3 years, walk back into an arena and be equal with pretty much anybody on the table, right? So they're just, their games are such that they can play for a long time and they can take some time off and still be competitive. So I don't think, but I'd be really surprised to see if Karen came back much. She said she didn't practice at all before this. She just basically came in and just started playing. I don't think she really has plans to be at a lot of other tournaments. Allison, I would expect to see for, a little while longer. And then we'll see how that holds up when the fields continue to get stronger and stronger with the inclusion of so many more of the international players now. because that's going to make things a lot harder than Allison than 6 months ago.
Sure.
My question, you mentioned the snooker backgrounds, and I can't disagree. I wonder if another contributor though is the level of competition that they played when they were playing snooker, or so like when I look at Kelly Fisher, the first thing I think about is, well, she plays the U.S. Open, she plays all the virtual tournaments that they put on, she plays all the match room when they had that like league, the 6-person brackets and everybody would escape the flights one by one. Anyway, she plays all these men's events. Margaret Fuffalova's the same. Christina Koch is the same. They play all the open tournaments. They get in the ring. I mean, Christina gambles with U.S. male semi-pros and plays money matches, and she plays in a bunch of open events. So it seems to be that when people play in the biggest events against the best talent in the world, they're going to outperform people that only play in WPBA events. I think that you acclimate and you rise to the level of your competition. You need that exposure to push you to whatever. So I just feel like I wonder. I don't know much about Allison and Karen's background as far as the level of competition of who they played against when they were playing snooker overseas. But to me, I think that that's a big common thread. You point out, the striking background, which obviously that's true. They have unbelievable. They're just so solid. But I also think that exposure and competition, experience competing against higher level players is always going to yield higher level outputs. That's.
Can't argue that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, Karen Corr did play the U.S. Open last year too, Mike. I don't know if you knew that or not, but that was
you're right. You're right.
That was the first time I'd ever actually seen her. And actually, I think she got stuck there, if I remember right. I think she got COVID like a day before she left, but that's neither there, I guess. Yeah, because I remember saying, I remember making the comment like, "Welcome back to pool, Karen."
Yeah, right, exactly, right.
Here, let's okay. Anyways, no, I mean, I think it's awesome. I hope to see more of Karen Corr. I hope to see more of. I mean, obviously, we're seeing a ton of Allison and Kelly. I don't know what. I mean, Kelly's obviously a full-time touring professional. I would have to assume that Allison is as well. I don't actually know a ton about her personally. I mean, I've spoken to her several times.
She's semi-retired.
Okay. She every time she sees me, she goes, "Neight, Mindham, how are you?"
Well, it's better than when she sees me and she says Pinocchio.
Pinocchio. So it's good to know that it must be an endearing thing. I won't be so
I'll run with you on that one. Yeah, let's take that.
It's got to be endearing. If it's for the lovely Mike Pinocchio Panozzo. No, I think it's awesome. I wanted to cover that, and then I want to cover one more thing, which Larry Easton, I'll give you a shout out. That was, I don't know if we ever actually exchanged names, so I guess I apologize. But Larry is Savannah's father, who I chatted with at the event. Great guy. Seems to have a really good head on his shoulders, and the mom is amazing too. It doesn't surprise me a bit that Savannah is the player that she is becoming because she has that that level of support. I say the same thing about like Sam Henderson. Demetrius, I know that you're really big on Hank the Tank, and I'm really big on Sam Henderson. It's actually, I'll even give a shout out to Sam Henderson. It's his 16th birthday today, and I'm playing at about 680 Fargo these days, give or take. I'm playing pretty about the best pool of my life right now. I think I'm probably playing a little higher than that, but my number hasn't caught up. I have no chance against Sam Henderson. I'm to the point now where if we played a race to 11, I don't know that I'd get to 6. I don't know that I'd get to 7. I mean, this kid is playing that good, and he's playing 7, 710, 720, and he's 16 today. I mean, it's just incredible. It's incredible the quality of young players that are coming up. And so I want to talk about that because there's a lot of really young women in this field that had pretty good finishes. Kaylee McIntosh ends up losing to Wei Su Chen in the final 16, but Kaylee McIntosh is playing so good as well. Of course, we said Savannah. She had a finish she cashed. I believe she finished 1 out of the final 16, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. She just missed the 16.
Yeah, and she lost to,
Alexandra.
Alexandra. It's a great player in her own right. I mean, she's a great player. I mean, I get you look across the field. It sure would be nice to be able to see April Larson in these things, though. I will say that it would be nice to see our all of our younger U.S. women being able to play in this? I mean, Mike, what do you?
Yeah,
I'm really. I mean,
obviously,
mostly I just want
I
to.
think that
Yeah, go ahead.
I do like a lot of the younger players who are playing, and I think it goes to what Demetrius was talking about before. These younger kids now aren't just sitting around home playing in VNEA bar leagues in northern Minnesota. They're getting out there, they're getting on the road, they're playing in these pro events, they're getting that type of experience and that seasoning and learning from the people who are better from them. So yeah, from that standpoint, I love what I see with the younger boy and younger girl players in the U.S. now. I think that, considering we still don't have any kind of structure to the junior program as far as instruction goes, I think that they're doing really well, taking the bull by the horns and doing it themselves. So if you add a little, proper structure to it, I think that the growth would be exponential.
Demetrius?
Yeah, I'm happy to see it, man. Yeah, I don't know Sam Henderson as well. I mean, I met him that one time when at that tournament. Anyway, we don't need to. But the point is yeah, I know who he is. I know he's playing really well. What's that?
Said you want to go back on tilt?
Well, I mean, it was a kind of a bad situation that went down, and that's okay. You just got to walk away and keep moving. It's not the first, not the last. But it had nothing to do with Sam. Sam is playing great. Yeah, I don't know him the way I know Harry and I know Ed, and so and it's not a competition. I mean, well, it is when they play each other, but I mean, for me, it's not. I'm just glad to see. I'm glad to see U.S. youth working hard because, to James's point, we haven't seen it. We haven't seen it the way we're seeing it now for a while. So
what would make me really happy is 2018. We'll go with 2025. 3 years from now, Hank the Tank and Sam Henderson are 2 of the 3 qualifiers with Shane, and Billy and Sky are begging for wild card picks because they're not going to all these events like everyone else is, and we have a Mosconi Cup made of those 2 fearless players.
Well, that's actually
it puts all of the U.S. men on check, saying, "Look, you guys can just be rid of the idea that you can just skate along and get everything handed to you from now on. If you want to be on these Mosconi Cup spots, you better get into the ring and start battling with some of the best players that we have coming up right now. Because I know that in 3 years from now, Sam is going to be 750, 770, if not higher. Hank, I'm sure, is going to be up in the low 700s, if not higher. And they're both fearless and they're both playing a ton, and they're going to make some waves. I would love to see them into the ring pushing for these spots.
Well, that's the story I think about this tournament is so Mike Page, who highly founder, I forget his title with Fargo Rate, but anyway, he had something to say about the lack of U.S. players, and basically I'm just going to read one sentence out of this post he wrote, and this was written last evening. He said, "Anytime there should be, in my opinion, there should be U.S. players." Anytime that the world's best from 10,000 miles away congregate in our backyard. I don't know at what point we start seeing their absence as disrespectful. His idea being, he's working hard with Predator CSI. They're adding tons of money. They're putting on these events that are bringing international presence into the U.S. The prize money's large. And the U.S. players are not really coming. What are your thoughts on that?
Mike, go ahead.
Well, my thoughts on that are, you pick your battles, and if those guys don't want to play in 2-set 10-ball races, that's their prerogative. One of the things that's hurting these events is the separation from if your ultimate goals, your Sam Henderson, whoever, and your ultimate goal is Mosconi Cup, you know what you're going to do? You're going to play in all of the 9-ball events. That's what you're going to play in because that's where you're going to get the points that are going to get you on the team. Okay, playing in Michigan didn't earn anybody points for anything. Okay, and that's no knock against Predator or against the event, but I'm just talking about the reality of the situation for these players who are making decisions on where they want to play and where they want to go, with their dreams and hopes and things like that. So, so I think that comes into play a lot. Do I look at it as disrespectful that Billy, Sky, whoever don't play into Predator? No, that's their choice. They don't want to play in 2 sets to 4 10 ball. That's, the money's great. Believe me, if it was a format that they liked, they'd all be in there. So those are, so it's a decision that the pros have to make on their own. And it's a decision that Predator has made on its own based on its marketing philosophy and its business philosophy and how it wants to move forward. So if those two don't connect, there's going to be some people who aren't there.
Yeah, I see it. I see it the exact same way. And for me, I'm in a different spot. I'm not a full-time player. This year I've only got to play. It's going to be 4 major tournaments, and or 4 for me. Like bigger events that I fly to, and so I've only got a limited amount of time. So for me to go pick a tournament to where, I feel like it's. I understand the statistics about two races to 4 being very similar to 1 race to 9, maybe, but I can tell you my experience is it feels like a perpetual hill, and so just how it feels is it feels like there's never anything you can do to get a lead, because you're never safe in a race to 4, and even if you win 4-0 the first set, you're like, all you got to do is miss 1 ball and you're down 1 or 2 the next set. It's going to go to a shootout. So it feels like one hill match, that a lot of which end in one shot shootouts, which is, it's just not really where I'm going to pick to go with my bullets on if I've only got so many shells I can fire. So for me, I just, it doesn't quite make my cut. And so I can understand why other players might feel that way. But then of course, like you say, there's going to be, it's like the rabbits and the hares, right? Like the more rabbits than the rabbits and the wolves. The more rabbits you have, the more wolves you have, and then the population dwindles and the wolves starve, and then the rabbits boom. It's like there's going to be a balancing of saddle point between the number of players and the amount of prize money. And so I don't know many players that are like, yes, this is the way we'd love to compete, is races to 4. But as enough players step away and say, yeah, I'm not that interested in it, well, they're still offering that money, and somebody's going to be like, well, if none of those guys are doing it, I mean, somebody's got to win the money. Let's go. So there's going to always be enough representation. I find it interesting that the representation is coming internationally more than domestically.
Well, and that I think has a lot to do with, the international players come over here, they've got to maximize their time here and their expense to come over here, right? So if they're going to come over here for 2 months, they're going to play, and there's 4 straight weeks of $50,000 added, and one's 8 ball, one's 10 ball, one's 1 pocket, one's 9 ball. They're playing in all 4 because they're here, and they've spent their money to get here. They're going to be here for 2 months. They're playing in everything, right? So that feeds these fields to a large degree. So I mean, you'll see that in Ohio when a lot of the Europeans start coming over here ahead of the American 14-1, the International Open, and the U.S. Open. They're going to come here and they're going to play 10 ball before they run into those, and because it makes sense.
There's a lot of people that can't get into that event. It's been full for a while, and
yeah,
I know Mika.
Waiting list is huge.
I had a conversation with Mika Immonen. He's like, I've played in every single Predator event since they started their tour, and I can't get into this one. And he was like, he was upset about it. Like, he's like, I've supported this when nobody else would from the beginning.
Well, then why didn't he get in when it was announced? What did he say? No, I'm not putting him on the spot. I'm just asking, did he tell you how he snoozed the entry?
I didn't ask,
because I've heard from people like Mario. He's coming over. He wanted to get into it.
He wanted to play into it.
Things like that. So it's I'm glad to see that the field's full. I'm not if the waiting list is 30, 40 people, you might want to consider expanding the field. I mean, you still have some time.
You could get well. I mean, I know that they seed the tournaments in some sort of way. Maybe it's a cool idea to have 32 more spots in and seed out the first players to get a bye.
Well, I think most of the people are staying out because Fedor's in Ohio. As he just pointed out to us.
That's fun. Yay, Fedor's in Ohio. Woohoo! So we know who's going to end up getting second place. Just kidding. Man, speaking of Fedor, this I know he's not going to like this, but the shootout between him and Chang was absolutely amazing. I believe it finished 9-8.
8-7.
And it was
they went 7.
They
went 7-7. They each made the first 7, and then Fedor missed his, and Chang took 1 minute and 17 seconds to shoot the last spot shot. He takes his time on these shots.
Yeah, well, he was lucky. He was that match was where it was, because in the semifinals there was a shot clock on that. In fact, he was
drilled one into the rail.
Yeah, he will. Yeah, he was he played against Aloysius in the shootout,
Yeah.
and he likes to set the ball down. So he like sets the ball down, and then he like cues it there to find out exactly where the cue ball needs to be at for his liking, and then he'll move it back and forth. And then once he gets the cue ball where his liking is, he stands up and then he actually aims the ball. So that usually just the cueing of the cue ball to try to find out exactly where he wants it to be. I mean, that takes sometimes 30 seconds, especially when they were further back. He was down there, moving the cue ball left and right to where he could get it to exactly where he wanted, and then he started aiming.
Yeah.
So
if he's got the time and that's his approach, then that's what he's going to do. But he took a good minute pretty much on each one of those shots, and it's certainly not a stall technique, a sharking technique, whatever. I mean, it's spot shots. You're not.
Well, I guess the way I see it is that, okay, the guy comes in from out of the country to play this event. It's basically, it's almost like he's flying in. You got to, I know you guys know this, but I'm just thinking about like the perspective of it. It's like he's flying in to fight through tough matches against international players to get to the contention to win a major tournament. And the format of that competition is not being able to make a single mistake on these spot shots. Yeah. So for the guy to take a minute to shoot it, it's like, well, he traveled thousands of miles to shoot that shot. Like, I understand why he might take a minute. It would be different if the format was a little different, but it's like, you can't replace a tiebreaker set, that's a race to 5 tiebreaker set with one shot, and expect a guy. I mean, it's yeah, it's you guys get it, but I just, for sure, it's totally reasonable in my opinion. Take the time you need, and then if they have a shot clock, then they have a shot clock. But by the way, there's no shot clock at the U.S. Open. I've been practicing with a shot clock. I've had my daughter timing stuff out, calling 10 seconds aggressively every time I hit 10 seconds. Like, she's been helping me I've played like 4 practice sets in the last week and a half, getting ready for the shot clock, and then I just found out yesterday, no shot clock. So anyway, that's fine.
No shot clock until what point in the event?
Until you make the final 16. So now maybe if I make the final 16,
I mean, that's
there you go.
I'll
be ready.
What you're prepping for.
That's right. I can handle the shot clock. Now I just have to find a way to get past Fedor. So.
Well, he's going to be in Ohio, so you shouldn't have to worry about it. He'll be in Ohio.
Yeah. So, but okay. So the top finishers. So Aloysius, Yapp. Read out the top finishers for the men.
Yeah. So let me finish out the women's quick, because I only gave the top 4. Let's see here. We had Margaret Fifalova and Angeline Tokolu and Yasmin Ocean and Amelia Matas were the 5th through 8th. So a super stacked field. I guess going back through 9th through 16th, Kim Newson, Kaylee McIntosh, couple of Americans there. Awesome to see. Chen, the world champion. Alexandria, Carlin Pau, Sylvia Liu, Kyoko Son, and Christina Zlateva. So great tournament for them. Let's move on to the men, where we had Aloysius Yapp beating Robbie Capito 2-0 in the finals. No shootout needed. Vitaly Patsura and Chang Jung-Lin got 3rd, 4th. So great tournament for Vitaly. He's really starting to hit his stride at the right time. He might be a dark horse to make a real deep run at the U.S. Open. Hoven Bustamante, Mika Immonen, Jason Shaw, and Fedor Gorst get 5th through 8th. Pretty stacked there. And then I go back to the 16. Badar Aldawadi, Jeremy Seaman, Sharik Sayad, John Mora, Kang Lee, Wukun Lin, Suichi Chen, and Pius Labutis. Those
So
are your.
Was Jeremy
round out
Seaman
of
the
this.
only U.S. player in the top 16, and he took 9 through 16th? That was
Well,
early.
Hoven Bustamante technically has an American flag by his name, but
Oh, all right.
and
There we go.
What about Kang Lee?
and then Kang Lee's from New York.
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I didn't know that. Sorry, guys.
Yeah, he had a
Yeah,
great
Kang Lee's from
tournament.
New York.
He had a great
Good.
tournament.
Kang Lee's been making the final 16 a lot now.
Yeah, shot really well.
He's
a great player.
Tougher, man. Those things are tough. Tough format, a lot of pressure, tough conditions, tough opposition. I mean, it's those things. Yeah, it's not easy. It's not easy to cash. I mean, the fact that Jason and Fedor are in 5th through 8th, like those are, you know what I mean? I think that says it all. The fact that, yeah.
Well,
Chang
beat. Chang beat Fedor. You want to talk about a tough road to the final? Aloysius Yapp had to go through. I mean, obviously every player in this is good, but he beats John Mora, Jason Shaw, Chang Jung-Lin to get to the finals. You want to talk about like the dude is playing. The dude is playing good at that point.
It'll be fun. I look forward to seeing him. He made the finals of the U.S. Open last year. I look forward to seeing him play again this year. It'll be.
He won this event last year too. So this was pivotal for him in Michigan. And yeah, he hit his stride right at the right time, because he said he had not played well. He had struggled a lot through the whole week, and then that last day, he just, from the morning match against Jason Shaw, he was just in a groove.
Mm-hmm. And it's awesome. I mean, Aloysius really is a gem for the pool community. He is such a fierce competitor, but he is such a good person. I mean, he's such a personable person off the. So somebody came up to me, and I was kind of joking around with him, and he came up to me. He's like, "Aloysius is like my favorite player. Do you think you could introduce me to him?" And I'm like, I don't know. I mean, I can try, but he really doesn't. He's really grumpy. He doesn't really like people that much. He's, I might, but he might yell at you. Like, just tell him to leave you alone. The guy's like, oh, maybe I shouldn't then. I'm like, we can try it. Let's go. So I take him over to Aloysius and say, he wants to meet you. Aloysius is like, oh, hi, how's it going? Yeah, he shakes his hand, signs his case for him. He's like all happy to meet him. It was like, of course I'm messing around, but yeah, Aloysius is just happy. I don't think he handles his stardom very well. I think he's pretty awkward about it. He doesn't really know how to handle it. He just assumes,
it's a great sign.
A guy, yeah. So, I don't know. I guess Demetrius, you have any takeaways from this?
No, I think that says it all. Great tournament. I think it's interesting that it'll be interesting to see how it develops. Predators doing their thing. It's going well for them. The players, enough players like it to where it's going strong. Matchroom's doing well with what they're doing. It's strange. I kind of feel like there's been years in pool's history where there's been like two different organizations trying to run this world championship and bickering over which is which. Maybe Mike could speak to that more, but anyway, it's interesting to see it develop, because I can understand where the players might be like, well, which is the pro tour? Do we have a pro tour? Which one is it? And so some players are like, the pro tour is Matchroom. Matchroom is pro pool. That's the pro tour. Other players are like, Ben Franklin is the pro tour. We're going to go get paid. So yeah, it's interesting.
Yeah, well, I think there's going to be, I don't know. Greg Hogue, shout out to you. Hopefully you got back all right. You had some tough stuff happen to you on the way out there, so hopefully you're doing all right. And just want to give a shout out to you since you're in the chat out there.
And he's got a challenge match coming up. I wish you luck, Greg.
Yeah, I mean, I guess at some point in time, there's going to be some sort of power struggle for the between Matchroom.
You know what they should do? You know what they should do, Nate? They should have the president. The president of Predators' name is what again?
Karim.
Karim. They need to have Karim and Emily Frazier. They should just get together and do a shootout. First one to miss has to back out of the pool.
No, it should be the first one to make one, because that could be a while.
I mean, just turn the tables.
I think Karim actually used to play a little bit.
Yeah, no, of course. Yeah, he loved pool growing up.
I'm just having fun.
Yeah. No,
Emily might be drawn dead though.
It could be.
Who knows? Maybe. she has a pool table in, or I think her parents have a pool table at their place. So, maybe she's practicing more than we know, and she's going to be entering one of these events pretty soon and snapping it off. Who knows?
Yeah, as far as your comment on a pro tour, um, there isn't really a pro tour unless there is a pro tour organization, right? Matchroom cannot be a pro tour. Predator cannot be a pro tour unless they have members who are exclusive to their events, and they call it the Matchroom Pro 9-Ball Tour, and so and so is playing in the Predator Pro 10-Ball Tour, and it could get to that point.
Well, Mike, how real do you want to make this conversation?
Hey, go anywhere you want to go.
With the bad blood that's going on between them right now, how long do you think would it be a surprise to you at the end of the year if one of these organizations sets up a contract where it says, if you want to play in our events, you're exclusive to our events? Would that surprise you?
Would it surprise me? I want to say yes, because I'm going to get myself in trouble here, but what the hell? It would only come from one side.
Sure.
And I think that's a bad look. So, players,
maybe not next year.
Neither one of these tournaments, as long as they're not on top of each other, neither one of these tours structures, neither one of these tournament structures are losing players to the other. Right.
Well, let's
as
look back
long as
3
it's
years
that
ago.
way, and the major beneficiary of all this money is the players, do you want to be the one to put a halt to that? And can you do that unless you're going to guarantee those players you signed exclusivity a proper amount of money, win or lose, through the course of the year? Now, if you can do that, different story. I don't think anybody's in that position yet.
Well, the PGA Tour never did that, and that's why they're losing players to live, right?
Yeah.
But I mean, let's look back 3 years ago. When we look back 3 years ago, Matchroom had 3 years ago, maybe it might be when they acquired the U.S. Open. I'm not totally sure, but let's go back to whenever they didn't have the U.S. Open.
Yeah.
They didn't have, maybe the year before that they acquired the World Pool Championships too. So they were basically using the World Cup of Pool, the
US
World
Open
Pool Masters.
first, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right there. So before the U.S. Open, they had the World Pool Masters, the World Cup of Pool, and the Mosconi Cup. Those 3 events. That's it.
Yeah.
Since then, they've added the U.S. Open. That's not a new event, of course. The World Pool Championships, again, that's not a new event, of course. But they've added to their event the UK Open, the European Open, and the Premier League Pool, or whatever they're calling it these days.
Yeah.
They're adding events to the calendar, and the rumor has
business philosophy.
Rumor has it they're working on more events. So let's say they now have, they have what, eight tournaments on their calendar right now. Who's to say they aren't going to add, let's say, 2 more in the next 4 years?
I'm all for it, and I think the players are too. What I would hope that happens, and we talk about this, head-to-head, conflict between these two companies, whatever. I think the best thing Pool's got going for it is that their disparate business plans and games, right? Predator's got this business plan and this marketing structure and branding structure, whatever, and they're playing these 10-ball formats because this is the way they want to go. And Matchroom's got this. So there's kind of almost a coexistence already just by not playing the same games. To me, the only thing that screws all this up is if the calendar starts getting competitive to the point of, I'm going to put mine on top of your event. Now, there's certainly an opportunity for someone, maybe the new president of the WPA, whoever, to sit down in a room with Karim and Emily or whoever and say, listen, let's coexist. Let's figure out how this works. If you have these events at this time of year in Europe, and Predator runs its events this time of year in Europe, then players can stay in Europe for 6 weeks and play in 4 events, and they make all this money. And then we go. So it could be as simple as that, right? Or it could be one wants to kill the other, and that would be bad for everybody. And so I want to believe that there's some way and some people who can keep that from happening for the betterment of the sport overall.
Do you think that WPA has the backbone for it?
I like to think with new leadership that would be the best way to show it. I think that Ishan is a pretty sharp guy, younger guy, clear thinker. Quite honestly, I think the less he calls the old administration and asks them for advice, the better off he's going to be. So, have at it. I think that if you want to show some teeth and you want to show your role in the sport and you want to show your value, then you do something like that, or at least you try to do something like that and you make it very visible. And if it doesn't happen, you're not thrown under the bus.
Demetrius, any thoughts?
No. I when it comes to the organization of pool, I'm not the right guy. I defer to Mike. You've seen a number of attempts work and fail, and you know what it takes to have something kind of come together. And I trust your judgment. So yeah.
Well, trusting my judgment would be a bad move, but I've got some history, so it's
I mean, I don't know. I think as my point that I was getting to earlier though is like Matchroom has added 4 events to their calendar, or 3 events to the. I guess if you want to count the U.S. Open and the World Pool Championship, they've added 5 events to their schedule with rumors that they're adding a few more. And I know the Predator didn't exist 2 years ago, basically 2 calendar years ago. They didn't exist at all, and now they have close to 16 or 17 events throughout the calendar year, something like that. I mean, it's only a matter of time before they start. They're both expanding out, and there's only a matter of time. I mean, Predators added basically 16 events to a calendar that didn't exist 2 years ago. So how many are they going to have in 3 years from now? I know they're trying to piggyback off all the CSI events, the amateur events. So, is it going to be a big surprise if every single CSI event has one of them attached?
There's going to be clashes as long as they're in different parts of the world. I think that's almost acceptable, and I think that's what people are expecting would happen. And I think even the WPA, when I've talked to them, they said, listen, we can't do the calendar date protection that everybody wants because it's just not feasible. But what we try to do is keep 2 events from being in the U.S. on top of each other at the same time, right? So if there's a Matchroom event in Europe and there's a Predator event in the U.S., there's a lot of U.S. players who aren't going to go to the European event, right? So they can play in the U.S. They still have a big money tournament to play in, and vice versa. So that's, I think, where you can find some common ground to where you can have, you can each have 12, 13 tournament calendar years and still both get what you want out of those events as a production company, a marketing company like Matchroom, or as a brand company like Predator. So there's ways to do it. It just takes some kind of mediation and some level heads, because just having the 2 companies try to sit together and work it out, not going to happen, right? So there's got to be
I don't even know that it's mendable now.
But it's not mendable. It just coexist.
They have done a good job coexisting. I was going to say it's a good thing, because if they started overlapping, that wouldn't be good, because then the top U.S. players wouldn't know which tournament they didn't want to play.
That's true.
Okay, sorry. I was waiting for that one. I had to word it in.
That's pretty funny. No, I mean, I guess so far they've only had 1 overlap, and I know that overlap ruffled some feathers.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, they're looking for reasons to be mad at each other apparently at this point, anyways. But that gave them one. Was it the World Cup of Pool and the German Open?
Something like that. Yeah. Whatever. Yeah. There were a couple. Yeah. But it's it could be worse. It could have been worse. It just we'll see where they go from here. No one wants to end up looking like the bad guy, for one.
Yeah.
And you could try to add as many more events as you want. At some point, it becomes, these are businesses. They got to make money, right? So, how much can Matchroom spend on new events that don't generate a ton of income or new sponsors? How many more events can Predator run to develop their brand and that type of thing. So, I think we'll find out where that is in the next year or so.
It certainly seems easier for Predator to do this than Matchroom, seeing as Predator is building a brand. Obviously every Predator event that they run seems to elevate their brand a little bit more.
Yeah.
But, but also, Matchroom has the backing of $1 billion corporation behind them. So hard to tell.
It has happened very fast, though. You reminded me, I mean, only 10 years ago, we were still having the 7-0 10-ball events, and Matchroom and Predator events were both, either non-existent or just not at all like they are today. So it has been happening very fast. So it'll be fun. It's happening real time. And it's both are doing well. So that's what I'm excited about. So good.
Greg Hogue really wants these events in the U.S. I don't think the U.S. is worth these events. Why would they want to bring something like that to the U.S. where the U.S. players don't support it? Right?
Everybody wants to run their events in the U.S. though. The U.S. is where it's why the players go. Push comes to shove. U.S. is where the money is. Always going to be.
Sure, but
from a marketing standpoint, from a tournament standpoint, from a player's standpoint, it is where you want to be.
If they're going to add, a Euro Tour gets 200 players, 200 great players that show up and play this. If you are, and they're they're fighting it out for 5,000 euros. Like if you put that same,
you just answered your own question.
Well, if you put that same event into the U.S., they're not going to get. They wouldn't get 50 U.S. players if you remove the European players. So Americans do not go to any Euro Tours, and they haven't for years and years and years. Well, of course, but the idea is like you're going to have that Euro Tour over there, and it's going to get 200 of some of the best players in Europe. You're going to run the same event in the U.S. They're going to get 32 players, and 18 of them are going to be complete dead money under 500 Fargo. Why would you bring an event like that to the U.S. if we can't even get the top players in the U.S. to play in our events now? Why would we bring more events that aren't going to fill? The Europeans are the ones that are filling all of our events.
Well, and that's fine as long as you have a stacked field of good players. Who cares what country they come from?
And you know what?
They filled the US and they're all Europeans. It's still a great pro tournament. And so if you're, what's your end game if you're the promoter of the tournament? It's to have a great tournament with the best players in the world. And if there's not many of them that are in the U.S., doesn't mean you don't stage a tournament in the U.S. I mean, it's on TV. It's being viewed around the world. They don't care what country it's in. They just want to see the best players playing the game.
Yeah, and I just wanted to mention, I mean, there's a reason I go to Derby and both Turning Stones. Those events are run really well. They are always full fields. We have plenty of U.S. representation in those events. And, that's it. So I don't know. I think it's, anyway, yeah.
And responding to Greg, I do care what country. I want more U.S. players to be playing, and we should push them to play. And I'd like to see them step up their game and play in all these events and get better. But I'm speaking strictly from the producer of events standpoint. If I'm putting big money into an international 9-ball tournament, where it is doesn't matter. The quality of the field is what matters, and the product that I produce for television is what matters. So, that's where I was kind of coming from with that.
I guess my broad point with that is, sure, we might end up getting the same. So if you run an event in like the European Open and you run an event like that in the U.S., what I'm saying is, sure, the top players are going to be the same, right? Even into like the probably the top quarter of the field is going to be the same. What I'm saying is the next 75% of the field, if you run it in Europe, is going to have a lot of really phenomenal players who can make deep runs. How many times do you see a Polish player in one of these finals that you've never seen before in your entire life, and you probably will never end up seeing their name again, make a deep run into one of these Euro Tour finals, and you have players like me filling out the rest of the field in the U.S. who can't win a game. I mean, that's my point. Is you're not getting the best competition. You're getting the same quarter of the top players. What you're not getting is those really, really good players who aren't elite top tier filling out the rest of the tournament. The U.S., you're going to get a bunch of 500 Fargo ball bangers. You're not getting the best players in the field, but you're still getting the final quarter.
I guess I know. I'm not seeing. I mean, I would like the best quality field all the way through too. I would like that you have to qualify to be in 128 or 64 with a certain level of play or certain number of points or whatever, but we're not there yet. So, when I get down to it, it's I don't really care, and I don't really follow who finishes from 65 to 96 and from 97 to 128. So it doesn't matter to me what country they were from, or to a certain extent how good they were. I mean, I don't know who didn't make the cut in a PGA tournament or how good the rest of that field was. Don't care. I want to see the top. I'm watching this to watch the top players play pool. Do I want to see someone new come through every once in a while? Yeah, sure. But, I want to see Shane, and I want to see Federer, and I want to see Filler, and I want to see Conrad, and I want to see, these are the guys I want to see. These are the best players in the world. I'm not watching the 128 guy that much. Anyways.
Yeah, but I think you're looking at this way too narrowly. So at the end of the day, like, we're looking at an event from event. Well, we got to look at this as like a farm system, right? At the end of the day, like, there's no way that a 500 level Fargo player that's 300 or that's 30 years old is ever going to be in that top tier of category. But if you give an opportunity to a 20-year-old from Europe who already plays at 715 Fargo, which there's a trillion of those players seemingly, you're creating a farm system. So sure, they're not in the top quarter and you don't want to see them right now, but that doesn't mean that 20-year-old who's a 720 Fargo now isn't going to be the Fedor of the future. You just got to have a chance, right?
Great.
What I'm saying is you're creating that farm system. There's got to be that.
Yeah, I'd love to see a farm system created in the U.S.
But what I'm saying is the Europeans use it. The U.S. doesn't.
Yeah, they do. I mean,
they seem to be now.
I've often questioned why, but they do.
Yeah, they seem to be using it now. This generation that's coming up right now doesn't seem to be afraid to play all of the time in anything.
Yeah, agree with that too.
But the last generation did seem to be that way, and that's why you don't. I think that's why we don't see any of those players playing in these events now. The 20, let's say 30 to 40, really 30 to 40. Name me one player that plays consistently from the previous generation besides Shane. There's a lot of players in there that they just never played.
Yeah, like I always say, input equals output. People the more you play and the better the players you play. It's again and again and again. It's just it's people are really people get excited about output. Like when we were talking about Sam Henderson. We're really excited about how well he's playing for his age or his Fargo or his performance. That's all great. But then if you were to ask, like, what's he putting in? How much is he playing? How many matches? How often does he get to play better players? How often is he competing? How much work is he putting in? Like, the answers, I don't know the answers directly from observation because I don't know them, but I know the answers indirectly because of his output. And so it's like, obviously he's playing against better players quite frequently. And he's not only playing junior events against weaker kids. He's playing against, he's probably playing in tournaments that have, top level competition here and there. He's playing against better players as often as he can. He's probably hungry to take on the best players he could find. So it's just, I would guess, right? No? Or is he just playing in his home? Anyway, it doesn't matter. My point is,
are you asking me?
No, it doesn't matter. Input equals output. So the bottom line is, with, and that's one thing that I get really excited about with Sam, with Harry, with all these young players, is that they're putting in more. We don't have a grooming bench like you were talking about with like the queue of, but we have the junior international championships now. Rahana, they've been doing a great job. It's been a year and a half now. That's been going really well, and these junior players have opportunities to compete in many of these types of events as well if they want to. So, bottom line is, it's changing, man. I feel like it may not look the same as it does in Europe, but I do feel like we have a bench of players that's coming up. And then when it happens in 3 to 5 years, everybody's gonna be like, oh, it's so obvious, of course, but it's happening now. The input is, I think there was a quote that says, you don't become a champion when you achieve the results that a champion achieves. You become a champion the minute you commit to doing what it takes to getting there, because that commitment is something that only a champion makes. And like, I've seen some players from today that are making that commitment over the last year or two. They've made that commitment already. So now it's like, I used to tell people I manage this. It takes about 30 days to get to the top, 10 seconds to make the commitment to get there, and then 30 days for the results to follow. And it's like, pool, maybe it's 3 years, but the commitment's been made. So.
Sure. Yeah, and I see a lot of commitment from younger U.S. players, and that's what we need. I think we need more structure on top of that as well from a training standpoint. To be able to accelerate to that European level, because like Greg said, they train in Europe.
Well,
here, in America, they don't train; they go play.
Well, just so you know, I'm opening up
dynamic.
So I am a full-time pool coach. For anybody that's listening that doesn't know, I've been running these 3-day pool boot camps for serious players. I am opening up a club. We're looking at March 1, and in that club, it's going to be private members, but it's also going to be, I'm going to run a training program out of there. I'll be bringing in, doing some different things. I'm not going to here. Now's not the time and place for me to go into my training program. But I do have a chance to work with Ed and Harry. I do see a possibility of putting something in place to not just reach into my local community, but either to bring the players in or through, anyway, I've got my ideas. So I'm hungry. I'm excited. When people talk about training pool, I get excited because that's what I like to do. So there's always a chance. So thanks, Greg.
Sure.
So funny. I love the comments, man. The comments are better than the show. Thanks, guys.
Well, that doesn't take a lot.
Yeah. We only do this for the comments.
Yeah, pretty much. Okay, well, let's move on from the Predator event. I guess we could talk briefly about Fedor and Carlo. Mike, you were on the show for it, right? It was just me and you last time we were talking about that.
Yeah. It went pretty much as we expected.
Yeah, I kind of said on there, what was the final score? 120 to 86.
Yeah. We were both, is there any shot of him getting to 100? We both pretty much said no.
Yeah, I thought I'd be pretty. I think if I remember, I said I'd be really surprised if he ended up getting to 100. I just don't see. Carlo. It just shows where. Carlo Biado. You can't make a top 10 of the best pool players in the world probably without having his name be on it. And both of us are thinking, why is he taking this match?
Yeah,
it's just. It's just Fedor is just a different player. It's nuts.
Yeah.
People are always saying now Shane and I want to see Shane and Fedor. Come on, let's get Shane and Fedor. I don't. Do you think Shane can win? I don't know that anybody in the world can win right now, except for maybe Josh.
What game?
I suppose, yeah, right. Matchroom 9-ball.
I think that's the game. But even playing 10-ball, Shane's got a great break. That's an understatement. But yeah, I think there's a difference in striking. Fedor is hungry and he's in top form and he's just making so few errors. I think that what was the match I was thinking of though, where there was a top Filipino player that played like a top, technical, like there was a kind of the gambler spirit heart player versus like the technically sound, champion. And I've seen it where, the players that have, the gamble, who was it that like they got way behind and they kind of ground back and just put a bunch of heat on their opponent, snuck a win out. We've seen that story before, right? But the problem is that for a Filipino champion with a lot of heart who plays great to like heart their way back into the match, that strategy kind of hinges on the player you're playing against showing a little humanity and getting a little jittery, inexperienced of money matches, maybe just getting weak at moments or wondering how come my opponent's not showing any signs of defeat. That in order for you to like out heart somebody, you kind of have to count on your opponent wobbling at some point to let you get, kind of like Dennis almost, has come back on Shane a few times and Alex used to a long time ago. And, when people kind of like wait up and, kind of see, are you going to catch up with me? If people hesitate at the finish line, these Filipino guys will come back and tear your heart out. The problem with Fedor is I don't think he opens up that door. I don't think there's no room for heart. There's no room for comebacks because the guy just plays so technically correct and so, transcendent. I just don't think there's really there's just no room for counterplay. And he's playing almost perfect.
Yeah, no argument. He's playing great.
I guess, is there anything else we need to talk about for this? I didn't watch too much of it, but after I kind of saw the writing on the wall, decided that I wasn't going to motivate, or I wasn't going to be motivated to watch the end of it if I already knew what the outcome was. I mean, that's kind of the sweat of the match, right?
Yeah.
Anyone got any closing thoughts on it?
No, let me just respond. I've got to respond to a couple questions in the comments real quick. So on the training camp, yes, and I don't know. I can't speak to the Red Door Den training. I'm glad other people. There's plenty of opportunity for better pool. One thing, so there's a question about if I'm in the PBIA. I'm assuming that's like a pro billiards association for teachers or something. No, I'm not. No, I'm not. I don't do the same thing. I'm a rogue. I looked at what was out there. I didn't like it. I said, I think I've got a way I want to do it. I'm going to do it the way I think it ought to be done. And then there was a question about virtual training. No, I don't really enjoy it. I've done it a few times by Zoom. I feel like it's like shouting into a screen and squinting at things, and you can't. It's not the same. And one of the things that I'm a big believer in is when I'm with my students. I mean, they fly in, right? So it's not virtual, but I've had people from all over. I mean, Bahamas and Canada, whatever. So when they fly in, because it's 3 days, so it doesn't really matter location. And when we get side by side on the table, one of the best parts is it's not me telling somebody what to do and then them trying to figure it out. Like they can try it and then I can try it. Then they can try it and I can say, no, watch this. And they hear the different sounds or they see the reaction or it's just so different side by side. And then side by side with somebody that can do it at a fairly reasonably high level. And that's not just how we hit shots. It's about where we're hitting our targets with our cue ball, how we're reading the racks and what questions we're asking, and just side by side, whether it's knowledge and technique or whether it's, strategy and patterns or whether it's cue ball. And I just have them doing it until these different parts that I've identified in their game that need to improve start looking like I want it to look. And they're doing it side by side with me and just sponging it up and changing in front of me. So I'm a big believer. For me anyway, that's where I shine, is one-on-one, side by side with people. Now, next year, I'm going to be doing a little bit, some small groups here and there, but mostly. But there is an opportunity when we get this club going and I'm doing some stuff that there may be a possibility, like I've mentioned in the past, to where I might have certain stuff that's, I can stream certain things or at least share it to where if people want to log in and trade along with us or different things, there might be an opportunity to do that in a different way, but that's not phase one. I don't have an RV room, but if you wanted to contact me offline, Justin, we can figure something out. I'm sure there's a place for people to come in and park somewhere. But anyway, so yeah. And then there might even be a time, where I would love to be able to get together, a handful of junior players and find a way to bring them together and do some kind of group training with with our future of our country. I'd love to be able to do that once or twice a year. And, when people spend, 10 to 20 grand a year training and traveling around and competing, I just feel like for them not to put in 10% of that into training, organized training, I think that's pretty important. So, and yeah, there's Nate, there's things you can learn online. Fine, other people can do it. I'm just telling you, I don't like it. I'm shouting into a screen. Boundary. I don't like it. If you want to do it, you can do it. I'm not mad. I'm just telling you, I'm not interested. It has to be quality. It has to be fun. It has to be something. Look at me. I'm passionate. I'm excited. Like this is what I do. And when I do online training, I don't get this way. So I only do the stuff that makes me feel this way. Otherwise, it's no good to anybody. Good.
Yep. Okay, we can close out the podcast. I guess we can talk briefly about Shane and Dennis. Shane goes to the Philippines and plays a bunch of challenge matches. Plays, I think, in total 3 matches. Plays Johan Chua. Dennis Arcoyo was the final one, and there was someone in between there that I didn't actually know who he was.
No, the first one was Chua was
not
second.
Johan Chua. Oh,
No,
Chua was
second.
So then he plays 4 total matches, I think.
No, 3. Someone,
Okay,
Chua, and then Dennis.
Okay,
But
I didn't know the first guy.
He blasted through the first 2.
Yeah, and then was blasting through Dennis. And then, of course, the stereotypical Shane folding happens against Dennis, and it
Jericho
comes back
Barnes,
to the full match. Yeah, Jericho Barnes, yep.
Yeah.
And then, Shane ends up winning this time on the hill, 75-74.
Yeah, I think Dennis broke dry on the hill.
Oh.
Yeah.
I'll jump in. So Shane is a beast. Obviously, he went down to the Philippines. He's winning all these matches, and he's playing great. For those, some people might have tuned in that might not have really followed the past. So Shane has played Dennis the last 2 big buddy match challenge matches he played with Dennis. Shane in both sets I know for sure one set he had a monster lead, and then like I'm talking like Shane might have been like going to
He was
120.
113. I think he was up to 113 to 87 or 97.
Yeah, it was something. I mean, it was, it might have been 114 to 91. It was pretty bad. And then Shane stalled, and Dennis came back, and then Shane, Shane got a little weak, and Dennis made a rally, and somehow it came down to like the last couple matches or the last couple racks, and Dennis eked out the win. And so Dennis beat Shane the last 2 times they played in these races to 120, and both times Shane played great, got a lead, and then got a little weak, and Dennis outplayed him, and then just got there right at the finish line. So here is the first time they've really played an extended set since then. Shane played good, got an extended lead, and then started getting a little weak, and Dennis started making a comeback. And I'll tell you, it's really hard. And I think of all the things that stands out to me, obviously it could have gone either way. And so the 2 things that stand out to me is, one, I mean, how devastating would it be for Shane to have lost again on the Hill? Like that would just, I shudder to think. And then 2, I'm not playing, but there are times when the pressure looks so disgustingly sick that I'm like, I don't know how I would handle that. Like, I don't even know, like, there's a lot of things I can do to get through pressure situations. But if you put me in that spot as Shane, having lost a big lead to Dennis twice, and then being in that spot where you're playing poorly and the guy's coming up and then he's on the hill and he dry breaks, and you just feel like doomed. You get to the table, the pressure, it's like the grossest, heaviest pressure ever. Have 3 days again, come down to 1 rack again, and you've lost these big leads again. And now if you blow this, it's like, I don't know, man. And you're not on top, of your confidence and your momentum are down, and the pressure's crippling, and you've got this, it was like just to fathom what Shane had to go through on that rack makes me glad I'm not a professional pool player full time. So yeah.
It takes a lot. I mean, we can give a shout out to the Shark Stream. I think they do awesome work. Unfortunately, their marketing just isn't very good in the U.S. And I mean, I'm sure it's not a them fault. I mean, I'm sure it's just they need to hit the U.S. market more efficiently. I mean, I don't know exactly what it is. But honestly, I'd never end up seeing a lot of where their stuff is. Until it's actually going on, which isn't necessarily, maybe that's a me thing. I don't know. It just doesn't seem to be in my feeds nearly as much as others.
Yeah, I never see it. I never see it blow by.
But they do amazing works. Their stream is great. The ambiance of that room is pretty cool. They have good enough commentary. Of course, anytime that you're going to be, I think it's important that they decide to stream in English. Almost all of their stuff is in English, which is really important. I think if they're going to try to hit a world market, which they seem to want to be doing, huge props to them. I mean, I think they're doing great work. I mean, honestly, it reminds me a lot of Roy's Basement, right?
Yeah. A lot of that. Yeah. So it's 74-74. Shane didn't try to talk him into extend into an extra day.
I guess not.
Boy. I think that there's times. Not. I think that the difference was. I think that Shane didn't want to have to go another day, maybe. But no,
Dennis wasn't gonna do what Shane did. That's for damn sure.
Yeah.
Dennis was breaking on the hill. No, that wasn't gonna happen. I was just teasing.
Yeah. Good.
I mean, I don't know. Do we want to talk about what this is going to do for Shane coming back, just short of the U.S. Open? Do you think that this is going to help?
You can argue it both ways. It's going to help. I mean, he's played these enormous races. He's going to come in. He's not going to be racing the 74. He's not going to be racing to 120. Is he worn out from travel? Is he worn out from playing that many days in a row? I mean, he's 39. Whatever happens at the U.S. Open, you will be able to attribute it to the Philippines one way or the other.
Yeah, that's a very good point. Win or lose, that's funny, Mike. I'll tell you what. That's the best kind of prediction to make is cover both ends. But I think that the thing about it is that in pool you've got physical and you've got mental, and I think that when it comes to the U.S. Open, you've got to have, to Mike's point, it's sets to 9 in the beginning, so you've got to have a real high sense of urgency. It's not a marathon where you can just kind of freewheel catch gears and just autopilot. I'm not saying he autopilots, but it's like it's a very, very high sense of urgency at all times. And you've got to have a lot of desire and a lot of being ready to meet and overcome every bit of adversity. You can't just kind of be like, well, I'm just going to play my game, and in the long run, I know my edge is going to hold up. It's like you've got to really want it. You've got to really be able to engage in the here and now, overcome the adversity, and do it in real time with a sense of urgency. And so that's the one part. That's the mental side. Then the physical side is you have to break great, play great, and do really well. Now, I think that if Shane had always been like really, really mentally dialed and fighting for his life, but just off his physical game, well, then I think that these types of long sets that play him in a stroke would be promising. But I don't think that's the case. I think Shane's physically always been performing really, really well. And then it's just a matter of how hungry and focused and, dialed he really is. And so, that's always the question with him right now is he going to be bringing his maximum killer, or is he just going to be kind of showing up and playing sets and seeing what happens?
Yeah. Sounds good to me. We had what are you at? We think we're good now? Is that a good show? Good enough?
Yeah, I think that's good by me.
Good.
I appreciate everyone for tuning in. That was a lot of fun. Thanks for chatting. So yeah.
Ed, just as James, a shout out,
Greg. Yeah.
Just as a shout out, I am going to be on the road traveling like crazy coming up. Next week I will be home, but after that I will be going to the Sandcastle Open to help Ed Ladawi with his tournament. The week after that I will be at the U.S. Open. The week after that I will be at the Ohio Open. The week after that I am off, and then the week after that I will be going to, the week after that I guess I'm going to the International Open, I guess. And then I'm off, and then the Puerto Rico Open. And then the week after that is the Mosconi Cup. So I will be at all of those events. If you are in the area there and want to come, I don't know, hang out a day, catch a drink, chat about the show, do anything you want to do, hit me up either on my personal page or on the podcast page.
I'll see you out there. And I just want to real quick, I want to apologize to Nate. Nate, I wasn't snapping. Man, if it sounded like I was snapping at you when you mentioned online stuff, it was.
All right, so we learned a lesson here.
My irritation was only with online training, not with Maytam. So I just want to explain. I wasn't sorry about that. It was just my irritation was the thought of training online, not nothing that Nate said. So I just want to clarify. I
got your back, Nate. I'll take care of him for you.
Yeah, thanks, man.
I'll apply my God complex to Demetrius just to get you back for him. How's that? Yeah. All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. Thanks, Demetrius. Thanks, Mike. Good show today. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it.
Cool.
And we'll give a shout out to Greg. Greg's doing a 20K edit here. I'll do this. Everybody go root for Greg Hogue. I will throw it up here for you, Mr. Greg. Let's see here. Where's it at? All right. This one. Everybody go on and support Greg. Apparently Wednesday at 5 p.m. 20K in the middle. Bar table action. Old school 9-ball on a bar table. Interesting. All right. 10 ahead. Oh, they're doing 10 ahead. That's fun. 3 foul rule, winner break and break. Yeah. Streamed live on Facebook, open to the public. Who's streaming it? Whose Facebook page is it going to? Or let us know. And I don't know. We'll give a shout out to Greg. Go, Greg.
All right.
All right. Well, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we will talk later. See you next week.